live. Let's go.
Hello everybody, welcome to this week's Index or Office Hours. I suppose we should get straight into it. We can blast through NodeWatch as one of our regular slots this week. Open Ethereum, coming to end of life. Nothing more to say there than what we said last week around the boot nodes being retired. 𝗨𝗀𝗄𝗹, we've already discussed the latest release. There's not been one since. Now straight on to 𝗨𝗀𝗃𝗀, which I think is probably going to be the one that we're going to be focusing on each week in this segment. I saw that there was a release about 6 days ago. Some changelog highlights were updated pre-verified hashes for mainnet and Ropsten, which I presume means it might slightly faster, have initial sync slightly faster. Anyone know if that's correct? Because the pre-verified hashes don't need to be verified as you're bringing them in, right? Probably not important. Anyway, improvements with the RPC JSON streaming, which I would imagine could have positive effects on indexing performance. Not sure if anyone's actually tested this.
That might refer to RPC over WebSocket, which we don't use.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I took a little look at the commits, but you know, I'm not a developer, sadly. And improvements on the intermediate hash generation, which what I could gather from the discussion on GitHub is just one of their out-of-memory issue fixes that they seem to have quite frequently. So more stability, all good. Anyone got any comments on 𝗨𝗃𝗀𝗃? Tried the new release? I don't know if Pen, you want to slip straight into talking about your POIs that you mentioned last week.
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. I haven't yet managed to check all the POIs. I'll do it throughout this session, and maybe we can chat about it at the very end. Because it's just finished. So the way I had my script initially was like, I was using Infura to generate the POIs, like to calculate the hashes. And it was so painfully slow. I tried switching to like other accounts. It didn't do anything. So I eventually just put it onto another archive node to check against, and it worked out eventually. So yeah, I'm basically just doing that right now, and I'll let you know.
All right, no problem.
Gary, I have some thoughts to share on 𝗨𝗃𝗀𝗃.
Hey, go for it.
Yeah, so I guess like a announcement that GraphOps is now 100% 𝗨𝗃𝗀𝗃 powered. So Open Ethereum is no longer in our production RPC pool. And I would encourage, you know, all indexes to look at doing the same as soon as possible. As we know, Open Ethereum is you know, the only client outside of 𝗨𝗃𝗀𝗃 that supports parity style traces, which are obviously required for subgraphs that depend on trace data. And as Gary said, Open Ethereum is being deprecated very quickly. So you know, it's fair to say that 𝗨𝗃𝗀𝗃 will become the dominant trace capable client for the graph, and
the only trace capable client, I guess.
Well, hopefully not. But at least for some time that might be true. So 𝗨𝗃𝗀𝗃 matters very much for us indexes, and of course it also has a lot of benefits. You know, more than a 4 times improvement in storage efficiency on archival trace data, and across many of the RPC workloads, it offers significantly higher performance than Open Ethereum. That's not all of them, but at least, you know, 𝗨𝗃𝗀𝗃 is actively being worked on and being shipped. So yeah, if anybody has questions about 𝗨𝗃𝗀𝗃 or about how the deployment works, or anything really, please shout. A key, and you know, happy to talk more about it in this session. A key concern for all of us is obviously data determinism and making sure that 𝗨𝗃𝗀𝗃 is you know, serving the right RPC data, and the subgraph data that materializes as a result is correct and deterministic. I did a POI check about 30 minutes ago, and across the 20 subgraphs that are being actively indexed with Aragon, and that also had on-chain allocation closures in the last 30 epochs, 12 of my POIs matched a quorum of closed allocations on chain, so it's the majority determinism match, so that's really strong. 4 had some matches on chain, meaning that there might be determinism issues for those subgraphs, but at least there is some strong determinism, maybe around clients, ETH clients, I mean. And then a further 4 had 0 on-chain POI matches, which is a little bit more concerning because that points to either an issue local to my setup, or more comprehensive non-determinism issues for those subgraphs.
Yeah, I'm going right now through all my subgraphs, and I can find a bunch that have completely bugged POIs, like different from chain quorum, and 2 of them have only like a few matches, like 1 or 2 matches out of like, I don't know, 40 something epochs that I checked.
I think even a small number of matches is a good sign, because it means that at least you're forming the same data as somebody else. So like that, going from 0 to 1 is a big deal. Obviously, we want complete matches everywhere, but that's a first step. I think the other thing that's worth saying, to anybody that might be hesitant to upgrade to Aragon, particularly in light of some of these determinism issues, is that OE is disappearing, and it's disappearing fast. So this is really the only option we have, and the more adoption we can drive, the faster we can get to the root of these issues. I also am personally not concerned at all with slashing risk. The arbitration charter, as I interpret it, protects us. We're all trying to do the right thing here and offer indexing services in good faith to the network. I can't see us being penalized if there are data determinism issues that are really rooted in using Aragon as a client. So I'm not too concerned, and generally I would encourage you guys to not be too concerned and jump on board so that we can get this client as mature as possible as quickly as we can.
I think that's the main thing, obviously, that's holding people back from jumping in with 2 feet is the worry of slashing. But I kind of agree with you that the arbitration charter probably covers us. It's obviously not a certainty until it's tested, and that could be what a lot of people are waiting to see happen, as was with, for example, the open situation, allocating to broken subgraphs. That was tested, a couple of months ago. And I feel like until those kind of milestones are hit and people have some kind of signal from the arbitration council, I feel like people are still going to be hesitant. But if they wait too long, I guess they're going to be caught with their pants down, moving on to Aragon as OE goes out the door for good.
I think there's something else that's worth kind of pointing out here, which is we are like maybe one hard fork away from OE no longer being an option. And that effectively means that whatever data that Aragon manifests, or the indexing stack manifests on top of Aragon, becomes the kind of de facto canonical data of the network. So, even though there may be some like POI divergence and determinism change with Aragon as a client, it will automatically become the canonical version in a few months' time. Now, I think it would be a great shame.
Just think about slashing people for that, and then slashing now and then becoming the canonical one, and retroactively slashing everyone, or how does it work? Like if it were
I can't see, like, slashing doesn't make any sense in this context. But the reason I bring this up is because I think it would be a real shame if we didn't use this opportunity to root out determinism issues between Aragon and OE. If everybody waits until, Aragon is the only choice, then we don't ever really, we're not in this dual client environment where we can surface determinism issues. So this is really an opportunity to, push forward the integrity of the data that we serve in the network.
Yeah, agreed. Has anyone got any other comments? Any of our latecomers who hopped into the conversation?
Yeah, I just want to say that I fully agree with that. And it should be how it, I don't know. And I feel like we should be working together, not against each other in this kind of situation. And it's for the benefit of the whole network, so stop thinking about slashing and just try to help. Because the stuff that me and Chris are seeing is somewhat worrying, at least to my in my point of view, given that I don't know where these divergences come from, but out of 20 subgraphs, at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are broken. Not even 20.
I feel like it'd be a bit unethical to slash guys like you who are bit like, Chris has gone all in on it. It'd be a little unethical, in my opinion, for there even to be a consideration of slashing when,
I know,
in effect, he's QAing this for the benefit of the network, right?
Mm-hmm. And this is why I'm saying, stop worrying about this and help us. Because the more people we get to test this, the more we can, the more points of view and points of data we have, and it's becoming easier to maybe find the root cause. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's totally fair for people to be concerned about slashing and, generally be averse to economic downside. But yeah, my interpretation of the arbitration charter is that it's the point of arbitration is to allow for social consensus on what is the right thing. And generally the objective here, I think, is, to build a resilient data indexing network that serves data with integrity and that has economic security. And all of that depends on determinism. And I think, adopting this client, particularly in light of, the alternatives disappearing, early is just not something that I can see people being penalized for, particularly because it helps us root out these issues and just benefits, not just the data determinism of the graph, but the data determinism of the entire Ethereum ecosystem is improved. So.
Yep.
All right, well, message received loud and clear, I hope, by everyone. Go install Aragon after this call if you didn't already. Moving on. Next would usually be the indexer tooling, but I didn't notice any changes on any of our candidates on there, so I'm going to go straight onto the repo watch. And the only comment on there is to do with GraphNode. 0.24.2 was released last week. Prevents an avenue where you could get DDoSed by certain queries. So recommended to upgrade to that straight away. I presume most people in here already did. Ben?
Yeah.
Yep, running fine here as well. Bit Nordic.
Good to hear. Just had a problem with my Notion. Okay. Before we go on to the forum highlights, I'll just let Oliver talk about the recent survey he just posted. I think it was just today, actually, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yep, that is correct. So thank you for that, Gary. I have posted this morning, just a couple of hours ago, a survey link for indexers, and I want to just take a moment to provide a bit of context on that. Many of you are aware what we've done with the delegators, in the summer, where we consolidated a lot of the feedback that we've heard from the forum in the spirit of providing a degree of prioritization, how the community feels delegator experience enhancements should be set in order. And that was an exercise where some of you have been part of as well. And we now focus our attention really on the indexer community. But we go about it in a bit of a different way. We have the indexers obviously being the most active network participant. We have the opportunity to go deeper into the exercise of trying to understand how the experience is in the indexer community. So we start out with this survey. We have a ton of questions in there. They are all geared towards just better understanding how the experience is for the indexers, what some of the operational setups are. We have questions in there around demographics, so we understand where our global coverage is, where we might have some gaps that we can focus on more. So highly want to recommend filling out the survey as an indexer. It really helps, the indexer community overall. The more participate, the more feedback we will be able to get, and also inform overall our roadmap on where we should address some of the things that you see on the operational side as areas for opportunity. So, the link is posted in Discord in the Indexer announcement channel. I've also posted it on the forum as well. And most of the questions, pretty much all of them, are optional for you to fill out, except for the ETH address and an email address, which we will use to verify that it was in fact an active indexer that filled out the survey. And it also allows us to get in touch with you in case you would like to get to meet with a member of the foundation and the core dev side if you want to share even more feedback beyond the survey. So the survey will be open until mid-November, 11/15, so you have some time to complete that. I already saw the first ones who filled out the survey this morning after it was posted, and we will surely share some reminders here along the way over the coming weeks.
Okay, cheers, Oliver. The next topic, actually, I think I'll just pick this up because it should be a brief one, possibly, before we look at the forum highlights. Last week, we ended talking about indexer optimizations, and I spoke with Chris a little, and I'm not sure there was much more for us to say on that. It's just Chris and Ford were kind of bouncing off quite well at the end, and I didn't want to get in the way of that, but we ran out of time. But just coming back to that topic, I saw that Konstantin brought up a question in the chat about the close many and allocate many features. You're the one that coded these, aren't you, Chris, if I'm right? Or
no, that would be Ford. The close and allocate implementation, I did contribute.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, the in terms of the broader, Konstantin, are you on?
Yeah, maybe Jessica can give some context to this.
Go ahead. All right. Sorry, was it you were asking for context on their use, or?
Yeah, just wondering that maybe Jessica can say more about this kind of functions, because I'm not like developer and I'm just know about some problems there. Like we have two functions, close many and allocate many, and basically when we tested them, they are working somehow, at least close many, and actually I think Chris told a little bit about it last in the service hours, if I'm not mistaken, and for this kind of function we can reduce amount of gas that we spend on closing transactions, and like significantly reduce amount of gas. And it seems like really important functions, but we don't hear anything from the team, from the foundation about this, from the developers, and it's some kind of strange.
I think this is certainly something that is being, considered by developers in the ecosystem. I think, particularly Edge and Node is putting a huge amount of effort into layer 2 research and development, and that is really going to be. I think the kind of like batching stuff is incremental gas savings, but L2 is obviously going to be just a order of magnitude change. So, as for the incremental improvements through batching, so. Yeah, in essence, you have these kind of, small building blocks of interaction with the on-chain contracts, like opening an allocation or closing an allocation. And anytime you can bundle multiple of those interactions into one call, you save about 21,000 gas per item in the batch. And so for kind of to give perspective, the close and allocate work that I did, that combined call saves about 23% in gas versus doing a close and then an allocate. So it certainly can add up. So close and allocate is currently implemented. Open many and close many are not. So those are potentially optimizations that can be made. Those would be most helpful when an indexer has a large amount of churn in the subgraphs that they are allocating to. So for example, if you have an indexer and they are indexing 10 subgraphs, and in the next cycle they are just indexing the same 10 subgraphs, then they can use close and allocate, and the others wouldn't really benefit them. But you can imagine if that indexer was indexing 10 and then they changed to a completely different 10, then they would greatly benefit from close many and allocate many. Yeah, contributions welcome. I don't think I don't have work on either of those two, but that covers that. You had another question about vouchers and kind of just
Before we jump to that, Chris, I noticed an issue with close and allocate. Namely, if let's say you get a massive, or not even massive, like any kind of undelegation that brings you your available stake to a negative, the moment that happens, it can't close the allocation with close and allocate. So that it's basically that allocation becomes stuck until you manually close it and open it, right?
Right. Is that because the allocation size cannot be reallocated?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I think you found. That's an edge case. Have you created an issue for that?
Not yet.
Yeah, please do that.
In the indexer stuff, indexer GitHub, or
yeah,
internally.
indexer.
Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah, that's definitely an issue. Yeah, so
and
contributions
also the error logs aren't very clear. But I saved them. I think I sent them to Sebastian when we encountered the issue. It's the error messages basically say that it failed to calculate gas, which is exactly what happens when, let's say, MetaMask tries to calculate gas and it can't.
Yeah, honestly, I'm glad to hear that, because that could actually be an on-chain failure. So I'm glad that estimation is catching that and not wasting.
Yeah, we had like 5k in that wallet, so it would have been not so good if that happened.
One question I have about these like batching of like multiple closes all into one is how would we trigger that? Like right now you close an allocation, you say each rule individually, like what would sort of the interface for that be for me to tell my indexer?
Close
like
and allocate,
close all?
Close and allocate happens automatically within the agent the moment your allocations expire. The rest, however, I'm not entirely sure what to say, because I don't think it's...
It's a good question.
Yeah.
The person really to speak to this is Ford, but you're totally correct in identifying that, the indexing rules paradigm doesn't fit so well into batching in this manner. The TLDR is that Ford is working on like a manual management interface for indexer agent. So rather than kind of managing your allocations by setting up rules, you'll actually be able to directly trigger opens and closes and yeah, just have a more direct interface for managing that stuff. In theory, if that is kind of wrapped in almost like a queuing mechanism, so you can imagine that you'd have your indexer CLI and you'd kind of queue up a series of interactions with the contracts, like open this allocation, close this one, claim these fees, or whatever. Then with this queue, you could kind of implement a neat batching mechanism on top of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to see what Ford comes up with.
Yeah, me too.
So, about the query, what was the other question by Constantine? I've lost it in the chat now. Vouchers.
Yeah, it seems like we have some kind of problem. Right now we have threshold and we can set it, for example, to some kind of low level, I don't know, like 10 GRT, for example. But vouchers works as a way when query fees reverts calculated at the end of allocation. And if you close your allocations before this threshold, right now your reverts just burn out. And I think Ford or maybe Yanis, someone of them, told us that we know this kind of problem and we maybe already fix it, or maybe it will be fixed soon. And all of your vouchers not burning, like not burned, they are just collected, and in the end they will be paid to you. But for now I think it doesn't working because, like, yeah, maybe Nikuru will add some context here.
Right. Actually, I want to give some context about close many and allocate many. But if you want to about vouchers.
Yep. Let's talk about vouchers.
No, actually, we don't update yet to 0.18. So we still can use vouchers because they just burn out. But sorry, I missed the question. What question was?
Really good conversation, yeah. So for now, someone can just get some rewards from query fees if you close your allocations to this particular subgraph before threshold was reached. Or it does not problem at all. Yeah. Threshold for query fees, query rewards.
Oh. Yeah, so, sorry, I'm not following exactly. Are you saying that for a particular subgraph or in a particular set of circumstances, you're not able to claim your query vouchers?
Yeah, no, so he was saying that those vouchers, like if you set a threshold, those vouchers would not be kept in the database, so that you could never redeem them after some time, I think.
Yeah.
Right? Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Timeout.
Okay, is there a question about that?
Yes, it definitely shouldn't be like, burn because if you close your allocations, you should collect all of your vouchers, and after threshold you definitely should get all rewards. But right now I'm not sure that it's working properly.
I think so. I'm not aware of any issues, so I think everything is working as it should. The kind of broader life cycle is you obviously allocate to a subgraph, and once you allocate, you begin earning indexing rewards, and the gateways know to route traffic your way. You obviously get paid for queries with receipts, and then the receipts get saved into your database with your indexer service database. Then there's some thresholds. There's one threshold which will cause your indexer agent to essentially swap the receipts in your database for a voucher. And then that voucher will have some value, and and only if the value of the voucher is beyond your claim threshold, indexer agent will then claim that voucher on chain. So you have to pay to kind of collect your query fees by redeeming
Chris,
the voucher.
I guess the question was, can we accumulate vouchers and claim it later after 2, 3, 5 allocations in a row?
Yes.
For now, like
You
literally
can.
for now.
You can.
Because if you use version 0.17, you can't, as far as I know.
I think you might. So I'm running 0.17 right now, and I keep all of my receipts and vouchers. But I might have passed an argument to indexer agent. I don't know what the default configuration does.
So what threshold do you use?
Let me bring it up 1 sec.
I think the default was 1,000 if you don't set it, but I could be wrong.
And you can see claim transactions on EthersCon.
So the last claims that I did were quite some time ago. When indexer mainnet traffic was a lot higher. Right now, I am just collecting all of my vouchers. I don't do any on-chain claims. And my plan is, as you suggested, in some time to do essentially one giant batch claim. And so, we've spoken in the past about batching over allocation management, but you can also batch over voucher redemptions and rebate claims. But unfortunately, for many of us, the kind of like the marginal value of any voucher is so small that it will never be worth, the marginal increase in gas cost, even in a very large batch. So most of these vouchers will just get thrown away because it's not economically viable to claim them.
All right, this is the answer. And I have very important question about allocate many and close many, because we have tested this function and we got 55% reduce of gas cost for this transaction. And when you have, for example, 20 allocations, 30 allocations, this very great reduce. But unfortunately, we don't have Rust developers. We use Python, and we have some problem to contribute to like main repo, Git repository.
So this stuff is done in indexer agent, which is written in TypeScript, not Rust.
Still, for example, I don't know TypeScript, unfortunately, again. But
Okay.
my question is that could we use allocate many and close many in our reopen, or we will avoid indexer agent? We'll use like our scripts to do it manually, but could we use allocate many and close many and don't being accused with like bad behavior or something? So there's a question.
Yeah,
Could we use?
I'm not the person to answer that. I'll give you my opinion though.
No, I understand, but my question was for Brandon.
Hey, so your question is like, if you don't use the indexer agent, are you susceptible to indexing disputes?
I will repeat my question. That, for example, we want to use close many. We will use it by our script. We will avoid indexer agent. Just we want to use close many for now. And for example, could we be punished or slashing for it? Because okay, close many is quite simple transaction, but allocate many requires vouchers ID, something else. Actually, I don't remember. But if we will use it, could we be punished for it? Could we be slashed for it?
I mean, it's really hard for me to say with like, that's a very general proposition. I would have to look at a specific case, but I will say you're not going to be immune to slashing. So if you're rolling your own software, you're going to have to do a lot of testing to make sure it's correct. I don't know if I can say much more than that without a specific case.
No, we will provide valid points, obviously. We'll try to, be honest, but still, we don't have enough information. Actually, we don't have enough information about voucher ID, how to generate it. But still, we have a question because we want to improve our some kind of service, and if we be able to use close many and allocate many.
I don't think anything is preventing you from using on-chain,
we afraid of being slashed.
Yeah, I'm giving you my take on it. So I don't think there's anything preventing you from doing so, and I don't think that using custom software is an offense. That being said, I'd encourage you to contribute to Indexer Agent and to the ecosystem of open tools. To me, that seems like the strategically better approach. And to your question of slashing, my interpretation of the arbitration charter is that there is some degree of protection afforded to those who are running the protocol software as intended and in good faith. And I don't think necessarily that running custom software is any kind of offense, but my interpretation is that the arbitration charter would offer you less protection if you're bypassing core protocol software and using your own.
Yeah, but still we want to be sure. So, okay, my question will be, is there any person who we have to get some kind of proof or permission to use close many and allocate many?
This is a permissionless network. You're free to use it as fits. The contracts do support close many and allocate many, and I would love it if someone would start working on implementing that in the agent. But if you wanted to do that in your own software, you're absolutely free to do so at your own risk.
Can you explain the risks just a little?
I think the risks are pretty clear, but maybe we can take this offline because I don't know if this is going anywhere productive.
All right, thank you.
Okay, that was interesting. Moving on.
Can I just mention one issue? When you manage locations without an agent, what about all the vouchers and queries that agent won't claim because it doesn't know that allocation closed or anything else? Any other issues when you manage an allocation without agent?
I think that's like the biggest one that'll be difficult, was also managing, because the agent saves to the database the receipts and vouchers. So that would be something you would probably want to also implement in whatever tool that you're using. Otherwise, you'll lose those.
Okay, moving on. Forum highlights. I just wanted to raise awareness for a thread posted by Giannis last week. I'm just going to paste that into chat. This is a GIP that he's put up. Let me check my notes, sorry. Proposing to add a mechanism to allow indexers to bail out of query attestations. So this could prevent an indexer from being exposed to slashing risks by flagging your query as non-attestable. You should check the thread there for a bit more detail. He's linked to HackMD, or you can check it on Radical. But I see, upon just loading it up again just a few hours ago, he's actually confirmed that Edge and Node are actually going to start implementing it in the coming weeks. That wasn't there earlier when I checked, so that's a bit of a development. And let me see how long we got left. 20 minutes. Okay. I'm going to skip one of the topics I had up there because, to be honest, it's something that I was probably going to bully Brandon about, but I see he isn't here. So the other thread I want to talk about is one to do with liquid delegation. Just let me paste that in the chat for anyone who's not seen. So an outfit called 𝗨𝗀𝗀𝗀 is exploring bringing GRT delegation functionality into Enzyme, which is an asset management protocol. This could basically create the potential for delegation as a service. From the way I've read it, delegators delegate funds to a vault manager, and then they can build a track record as far as performance of their returns goes. So this could be interesting to a number of delegators because it can abstract away a lot of the variables and considerations required to be made by delegators. Obviously, that's not always a good thing. It could be attractive to some people, especially smaller holders that don't really have the incentive to do huge amounts of diligence and keep up to date on how things are going in the indexer set. And it puts all that kind of presumed knowledge and risk onto their vault manager, which could go either way, really. Since it's liquid delegation, it'll remove the 28-day lockup on their side due to them having wrapped assets. But obviously anything that's in the protocol on the vault manager side would still be held in protocol. 𝗨𝗀𝗀𝗀 say that they believe this could lead to a broader decentralization of delegated funds. Whether that would actually happen or not is hard to say. That really depends on the strategies of the vault managers. So I'm kind of interested in what people think of this, because I've actually spoke with some other people about the potential of liquid delegation. The only platform I've used for any kind of liquid staking before is Lido. Not familiar with Enzyme. I feel like the adoption of something like this could shake up delegation a little, and maybe it could go either way, the way I see it, with upsides and downsides to how that stake gets, where that stake actually flows to. So I'm just wondering what other people's takes are on that. Obviously, we can't prevent something like this from entering the ecosystem, but I'm just wondering what people feel like as indexers seeing a variable like this tossed into the arena, as it were. I'm not sure if anyone's, got any experience with liquid staking. I'm sure the P2P guys have.
It sounds like a good idea, almost like a Yearn style, where it's like, you wouldn't be able to, as a small delegator, really do much except delegate once and wait a year or so. And this, I think, will make delegation much more dynamic and update much more quickly based on, how stake is changing in the network. So, it seems like a good idea. I was wondering if it was possible just to do something on-chain, or, are the calculations that you need to do to get like a rough approximation of an optimal delegation behavior? Like, could you just do that all on-chain, or do you have to have some trusted third-party off-chain.
I guess they could implement it however they want, really. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, there's like the gas limit, right? Like you can only
Yeah.
do so much computation.
But anyway, it feels like custodial staking, so they can't interact with the protocol in the way they want, but they will be intermediary, like between all the participants. They will just do their calculations for their liquid staking.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like it's inevitable that something like this is going to land in the Graph's lap eventually, whether it's on Emzyme or another platform. I'm just not sure about how where the potential delegation could go, because I know that's been talked about a lot. Even Oliver has been leading the way on some of the discussions there of how to drive delegations further down the validator set, and I'm not sure if something such as a vault manager that is presumably more diligent could be better or worse than the hive mind effect from many more delegators. It could go either way, in my opinion.
I'd agreed that this is inevitable. I think there are pros and cons. I think the work that Olive has done has surfaced that one of the kind of primary drivers of the centralization of delegation is the gas cost, and therefore the kind of prohibitive costs associated with more active management of one's delegation. And so to the extent that this kind of solution socializes the gas costs of active management across depositors, I think it's probably great for decentralization. But, on the flip side, it's also placing that decision-making power into the hands of a small group, which, is undesirable. I'd like to see something like this, but more DAO-oriented, such that, you could still have delegators as highly engaged ecosystem participants that are tracking indexes and holding them accountable, but they express their opinion about where their funds should be delegated to through gasless voting, like a snapshot vote or something that I'm sure we're all familiar with. And then that way, that there's the socialized gas cost, but everybody is engaged.
Yeah, I feel like a vault manager could even implement something like that themselves. I would imagine the business that comes to and fro would also serve as some kind of indicator and maybe be based on their performance, but it doesn't let people signal in the same way directly, I guess.
Yeah, to be honest, I think you could probably just plug it together. If the Vault Manager was set to a Gnosis multisig contract, and then you use something like SafeSnap, you could use gasless snapshot polls to basically get a weighted distribution of delegations, and then kind of trustlessly execute that via the Oracle. It's just plugging the things together.
I think one of the upsides from a delegator perspective, ignoring how it maybe affects indexer stakes and delegations, would be the whole liquidity side of things, because obviously that's been a huge pain point for a lot of people, and that would be shifted to the vault manager, presumably. Does anyone else have anything to add to this topic? Any thoughts? No? Okay. The only other thing in the forum that grabbed my attention was, as I mentioned, the topic that I wanted to bully Brandon about. I don't think I can really bully Ford because I don't know if it's anything to do with him, but I saw there was a thread posted by someone called 𝗨𝗂𝗂𝗧𝗂 about the curation botting issue, proposing a solution, and Ariel pointed out Brandon had already made a suggestion regarding decaying tax on signals. It's not specifically an indexer issue, but I think it's important that it's kind of stayed on top of. The reason I wanted to bully Brandon was if he had any further kind of anything to share on the progress made towards that, because while this might be more of a direct delegator issue, if signals acting erratically due to botting or some kind of rug pull incentives in general, it's obviously bad for us when we're trying to optimize our allocations. I'm not sure if everyone else is aware of Brandon's proposition about the decaying capital gains tax.
Yeah, I think that might be worth. Do you mind just giving an overview so everyone hears about that? I think that's an interesting proposal. I don't have an update on any further movement there.
Well, that's kind of what I was hoping to ask Brandon about. This only post is.
Yeah, I think my understanding of it is that there's a decaying tax, so that you'll have, if you curate and then try to get out of that signal immediately, you'll have a higher tax than if you are more a long-term curation signal.
Cost basis and time basis on a bonding curve.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. The things like that incentivize staying longer in the bonding curve, along with maybe like proposals to flatten the bonding curve so there's less risk. It's kind of like a complex scenario, but I'm for those proposals personally. Does anyone else have opinions here? Also, I'm curious, like from the indexer's perspective, what is the current thinking on like how valuable the signal has been? Do you think that signal on the curation has been improving or pretty stagnant, or like what do you guys think from an indexer side recently?
I feel like curators, obviously they've rallied together pretty well since the launch of curation, but I feel like they've got their backs against the wall a little, and I feel like that's led to a bit of stagnation in curation.
Yeah, I think I agree. There's not that much movement right now. On a positive side, what I've heard in the community, in the curator community this morning, is that one of the more famous bots hasn't been active for the last 11 days since we have implemented publish and signal. So that has done a little bit to help the bot situation already. So that's some good news.
Yeah, there was two I saw that 𝗨𝗀𝗃𝗀𝗀 posted on the forum. I think one was more into front-running other people's signals, right? I'm guessing that's one that's still active.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear off Brandon a little more about that, but yeah, he's not here this week. So we've got 5 minutes left. I'm not sure if anyone else had any other topics they wanted to talk about.
Just as a quick follow-on from that, I'd love to see that kind of idea, you know, the decaying tax, apply, or at least explored to be applied to delegation. So there's obviously the 50 BIP delegation tax that exists at the moment, but like imagine that tax was not taken on entry but rather on exit, and it decayed to 0 over a time period.
I said the same thing to Brandon right after I first heard about this for curation, but from what I understand, this is something that he feels should be implemented in curation first, or at least that's what he said to me at the time. That's not to say we won't get it in delegation, but yeah, I think it would be. It sounds like a pretty perfect solution for that as well.
Yeah, totally. You know, against the kind of disincentive to reevaluate your delegation.
Can we maybe ask him next week?
Yeah, well, we'll have to wait for him to. He'll be here next week, I think, because he'll be scheduled for another meeting after that. So, any other topics for the last few minutes, or will we wrap up early? Okay, tumbleweed. Okay then, let's wrap it up for this week. Thanks for everyone for joining. Thanks for everyone for contributing to the discussions, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone.
See ya.